Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mind Movers. We have the privilege of speaking to the incredibly talented Cinta Miller. She is known around the world as a top makeup artist. Cinta has created unforgettable looks for countless celebrities, but her journey goes beyond the beauty industry. We actually met through a celebrity/influencer, but anyways. She's faced some profound personal challenges, from a sudden loss in her family to overcoming difficult relationships, all while building a remarkable career. Importantly as well, she's gone through her own fertility journey, which I want to talk about. Today, we're here to dive deeper into Cinta's story, exploring resilience, passion, and strength to where she is today. Welcome, Cinta.
Hi. How's it going, guys?
Good. I'm so happy to have you. So, Payman always asks, how do you know these people, what they're about, etc. So I'll give a little summary. Cinta and I met at a birthday party from somebody who was on Love Island that's friends with Cinta, and she's friends with me too. And it was like love at first sight. I was like, this girl's energy is amazing. She's infectious and she's wonderful. And then the more I got to know you, I recognized that you were really this beacon of strength and resilience from the things that have happened to you. So I like to start a little bit from the beginning. But before I do you want to just tell everyone about, I know you do your makeup artist as your kind of career, but what else do you do?
So my career has been... it's such a multifaceted role, actually, because when you are a makeup artist, which I have been for 25 years, and I predominantly work in music and TV and fashion and that kind of thing, when you work with such high profile people, you're given this level of responsibility, and you build connections very quickly, and a level of trust. And especially when you're starting with people from the bottom up or the ground up, I like to say the ground up, what then happens is you then see the stepping stones of growth, and I've absorbed them, learnt them. And as the industry's changed, like 20 years ago, when I started doing makeup, people weren't posting stuff on Insta. I didn't even have a mobile phone 20 years ago. To assist people, I was going to phone boxes and harassing agencies for me to assist. Nowadays, it's like, it went from that to then working and having stuff in print in magazines. And now it's like things aren't very rarely in print, and now it's on social media. But still, the stepping stones of growth in my career, other people's careers, have been something I've absorbed, and it's something I've really enjoyed doing. And after a lot of self-doubt and imposter syndrome, and also backhanded comments from other people, if I'm honest. Learning to overcome all of that, I was like, actually, my dream role is to be in music and in music management, and to learn all these skills that I've learned to grow an artist, a music artist, but to be on the management front as well, and to have way more responsibility and opinion and say. I always felt like I had opinion and say on stuff, and it was kind of always overlooked because I was just the makeup artist. So I'm like, actually, that's my passion. So let's do it. And so I do that as well now.
Amazing. So you're actually in music management now?
Yes, I'm in music management as well.
Amazing. Before we jump to who she treats and everything like that, I know you want to jump to those questions. I want to ask you a little bit about your childhood.
Okay.
Tell us a bit about where you grew up, what your family are like.
So I grew up in a town in Buckinghamshire called Aylesbury. I went to a school with the worst reputation, or horrendous reputation, state school. And I came out with all A's. I was a dork, but I was really popular at the same time. I just think if a child is bright, they're going to find their way. And I feel that the reason why I kind of had that fire in my belly is because I was the youngest of 5 as well. My family are Italian. My mum was a single mum until she remarried when I was 6 years old.
With 5 children?
Yeah, my mum was a single mum with 5 children. My dad actually got killed in an accident 1 month after I was born. Oh. So I was born the 12th of March and my dad died on the 12th of April. So I didn't grow up knowing my dad at all, although I have a very good relationship with my dad's family in Italy. My stepdad, I would never say, this is my stepdad, he's my dad, he's an amazing person. But up until the age of 6 years old, my mum was a single mum, and I very much remember those days. I remember my sister's babysitting for me, my brother's babysitting for me. I remember my brothers being really strict with me as a kid and saying, you've got to do good at school. I felt like I had more people at home to impress. So even though I loved being popular at school, it was also very important to me to be popular at home and made my life easier because my mum was very strict. We had a great relationship, but my mum was very, very strict. And I feel that she had no other way, really. She was a mum of 5 children living in a council house on a minimum wage, very proud. She had to be strict to kind of do her best. So I did what I felt like I had to do my best as well. Did very well at school. I still have a really good friendship with some of my teachers from school.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it.
Did you go on to do GCSEs and A-levels?
I got all A's in my GCSEs, a couple of A stars thrown in there, very creative courses. I got the A stars for like drama, art. I was always very creative. I was one of those kids that, because my mum was strict, I was always in my bedroom at like 7 p.m. And so I used to make my own magazines, write my own articles, cut things out of magazines, make my own fashion magazine, write song words out. And I was always thinking, oh, this is what I want to do when I'm older. I want to do some sort of makeup or editing or be in fashion. And if I look at my career now, I've pretty much ticked the boxes. I have done all of them. I've worked in fashion, I've worked in music, I've presented on TV shows, I've done a bit of everything. So it kind of was definitely born there for sure. But yeah. And then from there I went on to, I did go to fashion college. I went to London College of Fashion. And from there went to go on to do a degree at St Martin's. And it was because whilst I was at fashion college, I did a little bit of makeup. I did a tiny makeup course and was like, actually, I always thought makeup was something a beautician did, and then didn't realise that a beautician and a makeup artist were 2 different jobs.
Yeah.
And then from there was just like calling up people, messaging people to assist them, started assisting, and was like, actually, I could go to uni and get a job on a makeup counter at somewhere like MAC instead of getting a job at a bar or being a stripper.
Yeah, I love that.
Basically, that was the truth. And then I just didn't end up going to uni. I ended up being a makeup artist, going to work for Tony and Guy as a makeup artist, and then ended up learning hair. And then the rest was history.
Yeah, I love that. How did your mum, as a strict Italian mother, cope with that?
Do you know what? One thing about my mum is that my mum, as radical as she was being strict, she gave the best advice. And the number one thing that she always said to me was, it's going to sound mental, she used to go, who cares? If you're being the best version of yourself, who cares?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? If I used to go to my mum about a problem, I go, Mama. She'd go, who gives a shit? And I'd be like, you're right, who does give a shit? And I remember saying to my mum, I don't think I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a hairdresser and a makeup artist. And my mum was like, who gives a shit about a degree? If you're going to go and be a hairdresser, just make sure I don't catch you down the high street where we live, being a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Go and be the best hairdresser you can possibly be. I was like, cool. And that's what I did. My mum was just like, just go and be the best version of what you can be.
And so I know as well, so did your siblings also follow suit? Did your siblings also end up doing really well?
So I'm the youngest of 5. My brothers and sisters are all very different. You couldn't have 5 more different siblings. Unfortunately, my eldest sibling passed away. We've lost my mum now, and I will get to that, but not long after my mum passed, my sister passed, quite soon after. But my next eldest sister, early on in her career, she was a massive inspiration to me because she was 12 years older than me. She was living in London. She was a dancer. She was, I turn on TV, she was on Top of the Pops, and there were shows like The Word, and she'd be on that as a dancer. And I'd be like, wow, my sister's amazing. And all my friends were like, your sister was on TV. And I'd be like, yeah, I know. My sister was on TV when she was like 15 on this like big dance competition on the BBC. And from then she was kind of like a little like local celebrity, and then went on to be like a dancer. And then worked at a film production company, and then actually got me a summer job when I was 14 at this film production company. And yeah, so I owe a lot to her. But now, she moved back home. She's got a little boy. She retrained. She retrained in counselling and social working, and now she is she works with kids with special needs and naughty kids in the school we went to, in the school that I went to. My sister works there. So she's there. My brother, I've got two brothers, but one brother was a builder, met a girl when he was on holiday in Australia, Muslim girl, changed religion.
Wow.
And is now an imam in the mosque.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story.
I know.
That. Yeah. And then my other brother is just the brother that is just chilled, calm, doesn't want anything, doesn't need to do anything, is happy in his own little skin, doesn't really like going out, just really likes being home, watching TV, having 3 meals a day, making sure that I'm okay, checks in with me, checks in with my husband. My husband's his best mate, he loves him.
You know, that's it.
They
say billionaires tend to be 4th and 5th kids, because what ends up happening is the first kid, she says something clever, and the parents say, you're the clever one. Then the second kid, the clever's taken now.
Yeah.
The second kid comes along, kicks the ball. They say, "Oh, you're the sporty one." Third kid says something funny. They, "Oh, you're the funny one." And by the time you get to the 4th and 5th, all the normal stuff's been taken.
Yeah.
And so you've got to kind of invent something. You've got to find a way of...
I'm going to be the rich one.
Shining. I know.
Am I going to be the rich one?
Not necessarily sure, but billionaires end up thinking outside of the box, right?
The entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's definitely me.
So does that resonate
That's definitely me. And funny you should say that. Like every single time, she's going to kill me for saying this, or she might love it actually. Every single time I speak to my sister Mel, she's always like, I've got a business idea for you. And she'll tell me the idea. And I know, because she always wants to do different things. She'll tell me the idea, not necessarily, and I think not necessarily you. Just because she sounds the idea out, because she knows I'll tell her straight whether it's going to be right or wrong, or whether it could be successful or not. And she'll know that I'll play devil's advocate, and I'll play devil's advocate because I've got her back. So like she said to me the other day, I've got a business proposition for you. What about if we do this, and this? And I was like, well, I'll tell you why that's not going to work, because I already do it here and I already do it there. And you need to think that I've already got this network of people, and you need to build that network of people for yourself. But how about this? And I do like applying myself to different job roles. And I don't, because I'm successful at other roles, if I fail at others, I've got the safety net of the things that are working.
Yeah, I mean,
so I can take more of a risk, I think.
The ADD thing, right? As in, like, I told you, I have to multitask and do like 20 things at once. I mean, my members of staff joke because they say that Rhona abandons a sentence halfway. I mean, I do that to Laura as well, who does like the enlightened part, abandon a sentence halfway because I'm bored of that sentence, basically, and then people are left guessing, you know. But it's the thing is, like, we get to actually today my husband was making fun of me because I had like an affirmations playlist playing on Spotify, and he goes, have you sped it up? And I was like, oh yeah, I did that, because like it was too slow to get out what the person needed to get out.
So
what's an affirmations playlist? So you're beautiful, so
basically I've changed my morning routine, and I think that has really helped my mental health. So what I do is, first thing that I do when I get up is I take 20 breaths, like, you know, out in through the mouth, out through the nose, that kind of thing. And I don't look at my phone, right? So my phone's in the other room. Then I go into the bathroom, do like all my skin care, etc. And I'll have an affirmations playlist. So it depends on what I'm feeling, but it was like, you are strong, you are beautiful, you are healthy, blah, blah, blah. And it plays on a loop. I think it has an effect on your neuroplasticity, because the thing is I've been doing it for like a month or two now. Obviously, I think, you know, imagine like that in the background whilst you're doing stuff, instead of like, you are fat, you are ugly, you are worthless. Like, surely that's going to have an effect on your brain. And then I'll journal. Then I'll like take my...
What does that mean? You'd write what you did yesterday?
No, not yesterday. I write what's coming up for me on my mind. And it's like a stream of consciousness. It's not even something that's super curated.
Yeah.
And then I get ready. And by the time I leave the house, from the moment I've woken up, I haven't looked at my phone for 40 minutes to an hour from the moment that I've woken up. And now I just look at my phone as I'm leaving the house. And it's changed the game for me.
See, it's funny you should say that, because not that I can't do that, I can, but
I used to think I can't.
I genuinely, from the moment I get up, I feel like I don't really have the freedom to do all of those things. So,
I used to think that.
Why?
Why?
I feel like
I
I
just
don't
get up earlier now.
Have you got kids?
right, so but no kids. So the
what's-
thing is,
what
so now,
freedom?
Yeah.
now what I've started doing, very similar to you in some ways, the trick is you have to get up earlier. The only way you are not going to get intervened, what I call it is railroaded. I always feel like sometimes I'm doing stuff and somebody comes in and railroads me in the middle of doing something.
That's your ADD.
And it's like their situation is more important, and you carry on, and then this person's more, oh, like, my kid's sick, or this is happening, or that's happening, or oh, I need you to do this, or can you proofread this for you? And actually that's ego, because you feel like, oh, well, these people need me, so you kind of end up doing that. But what you do is do a massive disservice to yourself. You need to do your own shit first.
Are you
right?
a people pleaser?
Yes, massively. And I'm trying not to be a people pleaser, because I fucking hate being a people pleaser. I
You know,
love people.
Some has a massive negative effect on your immune system.
Yeah,
I
Yeah, it
love
really
people,
does.
and I
People-pleasing.
really champion people, and I really want people to do well. And I think there's enough good energy, enough work, enough everything for everybody in this world, right? But I've realised that giving too much of myself at the wrong time has been very detrimental to me. So I don't know if you even saw, I had this huge operation about 6-7 weeks ago. And after this operation, I had to take some time off. And I was like, actually, I'm going to start this thing. I've started this thing. I've been doing it on Instagram, and I haven't even made myself go on Instagram every day, because I'm like, it's okay. I don't have to post this on Instagram every day, but I did put it on there to give myself some level of accountability. As I'm doing this thing called 365, and 365 means for 365 days, I have to take 1 hour a day that's purely for me. And if it means that hour is off my phone for an hour and not on social media going, it's my 365 and I'm off my phone, then I'm not going to post it. Because some people have messaged me going, well, we hope you haven't posted anything for a few days. I'm like, yeah, because I'm having a digital detox, and that's what I need to feel better. But going back to what you were saying, the trick is definitely you get up early in the morning. And I've been
Own your morning. I really think that, I'm reading a book called Smarter by Emily Austin. She sent me the book, and she has an incredibly successful PR agency. And the book gives a smarter way to become successful. And it really resonates, especially for women, because she said for so many years, you read books about like, just sleep for 5 hours or do as much as you can or ram in. And she actually completely refutes all of that. And I totally agree as well, because I used to be like, right, 5 a.m. club, like exercise, do this, do 100 things before 9 a.m. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work for my body. I was unhappy, unhealthy, and burnt out, which is pretty much what happens to a lot of women. But she says owning your morning, whatever that looks like to you personally, is that. And that doesn't mean doing like a crazy exercise class but it is certain little things. And I think those habits, for me, I will exercise every morning, but it doesn't need to be something crazy.
So
that helps me. For some people it doesn't, but that helps me.
So what I've been doing is either before I go to bed at night or when I get up in the morning, one of two things, or I do them both, is I've been just literally going on YouTube, putting in stoic meditations.
Yeah.
And doing, really listening to stoicism. I don't know if you know anything about that. So I've really been listening to stoicism and just mantras of like, and actually thinking about it now, it really resonates with my mum, because it's like, nothing matters. Don't worry. It's just like, don't sweat the small stuff, and be positive about yourself, and like affirmations, and have that moment of calm. And sometimes I like listening to it before I go to bed at night, because it will resonate with things that has happened during the day. Especially, so Liam and I, we will listen to it together at night before we go to bed, and we're both like, oh, actually, we're just moaning about that in the car, and actually this is how we should approach it. We was just moaning about this, and this has just taken me aback. And I feel like I get the answers. I just put one on at random. I leave it to the fate. I leave it to the universe. And I do that. And then in the morning, I will get up early. I'll make a herbal tea. I'll sit on my sofa, put a blanket around me, and then I'll listen to a bit of a meditation, a stoic meditation, and do breath work. And it'll just be for 10 minutes. And then I will go for a walk. I live in like a beautiful little village, and it will consist of walking 10 times around the block or once around the block. But I will just get some steps in, just get my body moving. And then I'll go home, have a shower, get ready, and then plan my day. And that is what I've been doing since I've had my operation. And I feel so much better. I feel like the inflammation in my body is like
Gone down.
yeah.
Cinta, you've mentioned your mum a few times. Tell us a little bit about your mum and what happened. And, you are this beacon of positivity and happiness. And obviously your story touched me. So
My mum was an incredible woman. She was, like, as I said, strict woman, tough woman. But I can categorically tell you now, no one was funnier than my mum. My mum was pure jokes. And that's what I miss the most. She was really funny. But I literally spoke to her one morning. I was going to look at a house. And I just, for some reason, at one point in my life, I was like, I want to live near the beach. So I decided to go and look at houses on the coast. And I was like, yeah, I'm going today. Blah, blah. And she was like, I'll make sure there's a balcony for me. Make sure there's a room for me. I want a balcony with a sea view. And I was like, yeah, I'll let you know. And I walked into this house and it wasn't for me. And I was like, oh, my mum would hate this. And as I walked out, I had a missed call from my brother and then a message. And the moment my brother left me a message, I knew something had happened because my brother never leaves me a message. He'd never phone me during the day and he'd never leave me a message. It was always a text. And I was like, something's wrong. And I called my brother, left me a message and was like, you need to come home. And I knew instantly. And basically my mum had a pulmonary embolism, which is basically a blood clot. And the thing was, she had complained about this pain in her leg and foot about a month before. And it was really bad. She was like, I've never felt pain like it. And we went to the doctors and the doctor was like, you've got arthritis in your knees. It's probably that. Got to lose a bit of weight. And she was like, yeah, but I'm trying, but this pain's different. And they were like, we'll send you to the hospital. Went to the hospital. Oh, we haven't got the right iodine to put through to give you a scan. Come back tomorrow. Went back the next day. Oh, we can't find a vein to put the iodine in. Come back the next day. By the time my mum actually had the scan, they did the scan on her leg. They're like, you haven't got a blood clot. You're fine. It's your arthritis. And then 3 days later, my mum was having breakfast with my dad, and my dad basically said that he'd made her like egg and soldiers, which was very rare because my mum cooks morning, noon and night. So for my dad to cook my mum breakfast was really rare. And my mum had said to him, that was really nice. At least I know if I die, you can cook. And he went, behave. And my mum put the plate down, went to go into the bathroom and went, Paul. And then my pool had this huge bang and my mum had just hit the deck and died. That was it. She was gone. And my stepdad was just there, didn't know what to do, called my brother. My brother came, air ambulance came, landed outside the house. But my mum was gone. And by the time I got there, my mum, it was awful. Like I remember being by the coast and having to drive all the way back home and it was like rush hour traffic and it was just awful. And I got there and my mum was still there. And I beat myself up quite a lot because actually the last time I physically saw her and spent time with her was Boxing Day. She died at the beginning of February. It was Boxing Day, and Boxing Day I left to go skiing with my friends. And my mum was like, what do you want to go skiing for? And I was like, I don't know, something to do in it. It's a laugh. And she was like, all right. And actually I wish I just stayed and spent more time with my family at Christmas. But I guess it was just her time.
So, I mean, I know how did that affect you at that time in your life, kind of like emotionally and mentally?
At that time, I went into fight or flight, 100%. I can categorically tell you, minus a handful of my friends, no one really asked me how I was feeling. Because I had, at that point of my relationship, I had such a close relationship with my mum. There was like a few family things that were going on. And as the youngest, I kind of got burdened with this huge responsibility that I feel like a lot of people in my family felt like I'd asked for. And I definitely didn't ask for it. I was like, I'm the youngest. I've had the least time with mum out of all of you guys. You've all been on this planet longer. I feel too young to have lost my mum. I was only 31. I feel too young to be without my mum. And I don't have children. I'm not married. And I just felt like I was going to do a lot of the things, my life things on my own. Even though I had my family, but already didn't have my biological dad.
Yeah.
So I kind of then got burdened with this family responsibility. And I felt like I had to step up to what my mum wanted me to do. And it was like organising a funeral, organising the will, doing this, doing that. And it was a lot of pressure. And I didn't really feel that. I didn't feel looked after. I felt like my safety net, or this safety blanket that we all have from our parents, just got pulled from underneath my feet. And I felt like I'd been thrown out of a plane, basically. Yeah. I felt like I was like flapping my arms trying to stay up in the air, and nobody could see me flapping my arms. And it was from that point there that I developed anxiety. I'd never had anxiety before, but from that point then I definitely developed anxiety. And it wasn't until a year later where I went through another bad experience. My elder sister then got cancer. I then met a guy, went through an awful relationship, and he put me through the mill, and the stress levels and my adrenal fatigue, the stress levels, the mitochondria depletion just affected me so badly, and I was so depleted that I actually remember being on my bedroom floor and my friend coming in going, Cinta, like, what are you doing? And I'd been there for 3 days, and she was like, I've been trying to call you. Like, what? And she just burst into tears, and she was like, we need to sort, like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm really upset. And she was like, oh my God. And I was like, I'm really upset that I've woken up. Like, I was gutted that I'd woken up. I just wanted to die. I was just like, there's nothing.
But that's grief. And I think that grief is a really important part. Like, have you ever had any grief in your life?
Sure.
You have?
Yeah.
I think that grief is something that I think grief is something that's so important, but some human beings are not great at it. You know, I've seen like people experience loss, and it's almost like they just go on this autopilot, right, got to get up and go.
Yeah.
Especially if they have to take on that role of like you said, the will, the actual like logistics of everything. But I think that if we don't allow grief to go through our body, it will catch up with you at
100%.
some point. We have got to allow that. Like, grief is a healthy emotion. And I remember once saying to my therapist, I've grieved things in a different way. Like, sure, I've not experienced death, you know, touch wood, you know, my grandparents died, but I think there was more acceptance with that. I wasn't particularly close to them. It happened when they were pretty old, you know, so it seemed like a natural sort of process of life. But more recently, I had really discovered what grief meant, losing relationships and lovers and things like that. And I think those things also have an element of grief in it. And I said to my therapist, I was like, I feel like I want to die. Why do I feel like I want to die? And she goes, that's grief.
Yeah.
And then I said, so what do I do? And she goes, the only way out is through. The only way out is through. And that stuck by me. So now when I feel like I just want to cry all day because someone has left my life, and as I said, it almost does feel like death when someone leaves your life and you never see them again, right? She just said, just go right through it.
Yeah. And it's so true. At that point, I put such emphasis. I'd been in this relationship that had come to an end. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of it because he doesn't deserve the airtime, but I really felt like I was grieving that relationship, but I wasn't. I was grieving my mum because actually what I'd done is I'd replaced the safety net with somebody that just wasn't reliable. And when that person went, I was then really, really faced with the grief. And in the end, I talk about people pleasing. Actually, this is where I think people pleasing did get me through and did work in my favour, because there was a moment where things were so bad that my friend's husband called me and he was like, look, my friend obviously said to her husband, like, I'm really worried about Cinta. And he called me and went, look, I've called a clinic. I've called a clinic, a rehab clinic for you. You've got really bad, I think you've got really bad depression. I'm going to pay for you to go. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah, I'm going to pay for you to go. He goes, whether it's a week, 4 weeks, I'm paying for it. And I remember thinking, oh my God, it's so expensive. And then I sat there and thought to myself, oh my God, what if I go and I don't get better? And then I owe him 80 grand.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't have that level of responsibility or burden on my shoulders. I thought the only way through this is for me to pull my socks up. So I actually opened my laptop and thought, right, where can I go on my own where I'm going to feel safe and where I'm going to grow? And I basically booked a Muay Thai boot camp in Thailand. And I booked it. I went for a month on my own. And for the first 2 weeks, it was horrendous. I hated every day of it. I cried every day. I was in bed at like 7:00 every night crying. And then one day I did this hike, and this hike was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was like uphill incline for 4 hours. And I was like, yeah, I hike. I've done Runyon Canyon in LA. I'm a seasoned hiker. Was I shit? Got to this hike, was doing it, and then slowly I got to the back, and then I was like miles behind everybody else. And when I got to the top, everyone was waiting for me and everyone applauded. And I was just like, all I did was just cry. And I sat on these steps at this huge Buddha and was crying. And I looked up and all I could see was these beautiful islands with like fog. And I just got hit with like, this is going to sound really corny, but I got hit with this beauty of the universe. And what it made me feel was extremely lucky. Thought, oh my God, I'm really lucky to be here.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I can afford to be here. I'm lucky that I can afford to take a month off work. I'm lucky that I'm breathing. I'm lucky that I've met these amazing people that have waited 2 hours for me. What have I got? What have I got to be upset about? And why am I crying over a loser? And actually, what I'm crying about really is my mum. And that's when I kind of went back home, met somebody instantly who I'm now married to, better frame of mind, went to see my sister who was really sick, built bridges with my sister, and we started to get our family trajectory back on track.
Yeah.
I needed to build myself back first and become my own safety net, I suppose.
Yeah.
Losing both parents is a funny thing. I mean, I haven't lost either parent, but...
How old are they?
Sort of 88 and 78.
Oh, so young. They had you then.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
that old.
You're saying that like you're 75.
I'm not that old.
Literally, I'm winding up.
But several of
No,
my...
but that's actually my dad's 80 and my mum's 70, so that's still
Similar. I've got loads of friends who've lost both parents, and that moment of losing your second parent, I've spoken to all of them about it, and they say stuff like, suddenly the ground feels like it's shaking.
That's crazy.
It's exactly how it feels.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing because but you could be 50 years old and that could happen to you, and your parents. By the time you get to my age, I'm looking after my parents more than they're looking after me. But there's something about it that shakes you up when you haven't got anyone to go to.
Yeah.
In a way.
Do you think that, I know this is a bit of a weird question, but do you think no matter what age you lose your parents, you're an orphan? Do you know what I mean?
I cannot believe you just said that. Do you know how many times, like, in my family, we've said we're orphans? Because we are. We are actually orphans. And although I kind of think, yeah, we're orphans, but we're kind of not because we've got family. I see orphans as someone that don't have anybody. But we've lost our parents, for sure. We say that all the time.
But do you think, so God forbid, obviously, if you lost your parents soon, because, as you said, they kind of lived their life and they're older, do you think you'd feel like an orphan or not?
I think to the extent that, your parents always see you as their little kid. Do you
think they still do?
Yeah, for sure.
Little Pay.
No, they really do. They really do. And they give you advice that they used to give you when you're like 12, like be careful and whatever. And to that same extent, you always think of them as your parent,
Yeah.
So and there's also sort of the stories that are lost, and the reason why I'm trying to spend as much time with my parents as possible is because I know I will regret it when they're gone, and they're still telling me things I never knew, And
Yeah.
I think the loss of parents is something that, again, is quite stigmatized, that people don't really talk about it. The holistic psychologist, she's my favorite, Nicole Pereira, I don't know if you follow her, but she's brilliant. And she says, it's something that people don't like to talk about because it's almost like they just don't ever want to have to face it.
People don't like to talk about death in general.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Yeah, no, you're right. You're probably right. But I think also particularly she talks about, you look at your parents, if you've had the privilege of watching them age and you suddenly look at them and go, they're getting old, or you suddenly notice they can't do stuff for themselves anymore. She said that's quite difficult to come to terms with. And I would say that I have to totally agree with that. Tell us a little bit, if it's okay and not too heavy, about then the loss of your sister. So you said that happened quite quickly afterwards. Was it linked?
So no, my sister had cancer. My sister literally just had cancer. She had bowel cancer, and it was secondary on her liver, and then took over her whole body. And it came around quite quickly, and she literally passed a year, 18 months later.
Wow.
So that kind of happened, but that was a really peculiar situation because my sister, she was the eldest, I was the youngest. And for a very long time of my life, a big part of my life as a kid, we weren't close. Then I feel like the age gap closes when you're a certain age. Yeah. You're into certain things, you're discovering things, I then had like a level of respect for my sister and really looked up to her. She had she bought houses, and I was on my career path, and she was like really proud of me. And then it kind of split again because of the whole family politics. And I feel bad for that, but that was a situation where I feel bad for it, but I did have to take time out for myself to be like, I have to get myself back on track, because if I don't, I'm going to maybe end up going down another way of becoming quite poorly. And I saw my sister let things affect her unnecessarily. And I really believe, I don't know if, there's going to be medical experts out there and they're like, well, you don't know about how this works. No, I don't. But what I can say is that mentally, things affected my sister
100%.
Unnecessarily, and she had a choice of whether she let that affect her or not, and she did. And I think that it definitely contributed to how unwell she was.
I mean, I think we've had this conversation before on this podcast. I think it is impossible to separate the mind and the body as much as people want to separate it. There are a few psychotherapists, psychiatrists that recognize that. They recognize cancer, autoimmune. There is an element of like mental health associated to that. And I think it just makes sense. It's the stored, it just makes sense. It's the stored toxicity, the stored stress. Of course, it's going to affect you. But I think what's remarkable about you, is that you have not let that stored grief, affect who you are and the decisions that you make, which is absolutely incredible. However, as we know, I think it did quite rightly also affect your fertility, which we've talked
100%.
about. So I'm interested to kind of go into that. So tell us a little bit about your fertility and what happened.
So basically, at that time, I think my adrenal fatigue was at an all-time high. Like, I was so burnt out. And for those of you that know, are kind of like medically about all your mitochondria and where it's stored, but women store most of their mitochondria in their ovaries purely because it's there as a reserve for childbirth. So that's why you get so many women that are, athletes, that are long distance runners, that are constantly on the go. With a shortage of energy, they lose their periods, because actually the mitochondria that is in their like fertility system and menstrual cycle kind of gets depleted and all of that jazz. So I'm not a medical expert, but I know enough about it. But at that time, I was so stressed. I was carrying so much grief, emotion, hurt, pain, responsibility, every superlative that describes an emotion I had. I can categorically tell you I had. To the point I even had therapy with a CBT therapist, and she was like trying to give me therapy. And I went to her, can I just ask you something? Have you lost your mum? And she went, no. And I went, you're not for me.
Yeah.
And I just left.
Yeah.
I was like, you cannot advise somebody
Yeah.
unless you actually physically know.
Walk the walk.
And actually, I know people go, cognitive behavioural therapy is amazing. And listen, it has its place. But when people are grieving, let me tell you, do you know what they need? They need somebody to put their arm around them and go, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You are going to be okay. I'm here for you. They need love, support, comfort, and emotion. They don't need words. They don't need
Work.
They don't need that. Not to say you don't need therapy, but when somebody is grieving, just put your arms around them and give them some love. You cannot even begin to know how powerful that is for somebody. So in that moment, I was like, I need to leave. But as I said,
But then you're a hugger.
Yeah, I'm a hugger.
It's obvious. But
Yeah.
I'm a hugger. Yeah, but some people aren't.
Yeah, I
And
think
so
that's got to do with that.
Maybe you need hugs
Yeah.
in that moment. I mean, I hug some people. It's like hugging a tree. Like they just don't want to be hugged. I feel.
I think it's a very European, Mediterranean thing.
But I
as
think
well.
also the thing is like hugging has literally been shown to release endorphins, serotonin, happiness. I think the people that don't enjoy being hugging or being touched, I think that's, maybe I'm making a massive generalization, is some kind of like repression inside them.
Maybe. But I remember,
or maybe trauma, like people that also may have been abused, don't want to be touched necessarily.
No, like, but just some people's makeup is that way, and some people's makeup isn't
I think
that
you're
way.
oversimplifying it.
Well, or maybe, but I remember in COVID, the thing I hated the most was not hugging people. Like when you couldn't get near people.
Yeah.
It was the thing that got to me. I was almost feeling down about it. Like,
Culturally, like Cinta said, like for some cultures it's more acceptable than others.
yeah, but my own brother doesn't hug. Like he was brought up in the same
What did
house.
you do to him?
You should say that. I actually saw an Instagram post the other day saying, let's normalise. My friend,
I saw it was the holistic psychologist. Let's normalise children that don't want to be touched. Or is that the one?
let's normalise children not having to hug people.
Yeah, I saw that. That's the holistic psychologist, but I follow a lot of her work.
And I was
think,
like, what is that about?
No, I think she's saying that, like, you know, that we should listen to children's intuition is basically what she's trying to say. Like, you know, when like people, it's the same thing that it's like, pretty girls smile, like smile for the nice smile for the nice person.
Fine.
So it's kind of like, don't force children, because children have pretty good intuition, and if they don't feel like hugging people, they shouldn't be forced into it. That's kind of like the premise of it.
Okay.
But I want to continue like on this.
Sorry for interrupting.
So basically, so I had, long story short, I'm going to really abbreviate it down. But basically, at that absolute point of having all of these emotions, carrying all of these emotions, I was at my thinnest as well. I looked at a picture the other day and I was like, God, I look good. I look good. I look really good. I was at my thinnest, and my periods had stopped. And I remember going to the doctors and saying, you know, my periods have stopped. And he basically said, look, you've lost a lot of weight very quickly. You've got to look at it like a bank account. Imagine you're going to a cash point and you're drawing out money, but you're not putting anything in. And that bank account is empty, but you're still trying to draw out, and you're going into your overdraft. And I was like, right, okay. And then I put a little bit of weight back on. Periods didn't come back. And then I went back to the doctor again, and he said, oh, do you know what? I think you've got polycystic ovaries. Let's do a test for polycystic ovaries. Did that. And he was like, you haven't got polycystic ovaries. I think you've got a problem with your thyroid. Did a test for that. And I was like, can I just get a test for all of them? No, we can't do that. In the end, I was like, right.
How old were you?
I was 32. In the end, I found a hormone doctor, fertility doctor, gynecologist, it was private, paid for him. And I had a group of tests done with him, and his secretary sent me an email, was like, Mr. Reginald wants to do your test again. He'd like to do your test again. So I did all my tests again. And then he said to me, he actually called me and he went, have you got a partner? And I said, you got a partner, right? And I said, yeah, I'm you know, I'm in a relationship. And he said, how serious is your relationship? I said, very serious. I think that's the person I'm going to marry. And he went, bring him with you when you come to your appointment. Like, this guy, honestly, I love him for doing this. And I went to my appointment and he went, I wanted to do your results twice, because sometimes it's bad timing. And if I get it twice and it's the same results, then we've got to go with it. He said, but basically your it's your Müllerian cell count. He said, your Müllerian cell count is that of a 60-year-old woman. And he said, and your hormone levels are, he was like going through all my hormones. And basically he said to me, where you're at, you would get women saying they're in perimenopause, or he goes, you're not there. You're out of it. You're through it. He goes, you've got no eggs. You've got 0 eggs. There's no follicles. There's none of that. He goes, there's none. And I went,
so you were 32 and you basically were diagnosed with menopause at 32.
Yeah. And and the first question I said was, because I'm naive, I know nothing about this, right? I went, can I have IVF? And he went, no, because I don't know if you know how IVF works. You have to take your eggs, and so no, you can't. I went, can I have children? And he went, and I looked at Liam and I went, you don't have to stay with me. It's the first thing I said to him. I went, you don't have to stay with me. And he went, are you mad?
Such a people pleaser.
He looked at me and he went, are you crazy? He went, we'll just adopt. It's okay. Yeah. And he was crying. He went, we'll just adopt. And I was just like, this is my person. It's just my person.
Did he want kids more than you?
The funny thing was, when I met Liam, at that point of meeting him, because of all the shit I'd been through, I basically made this. I'd been watching this guy on YouTube called Matthew Hussey.
No, I know him. I love him. I love him.
And I basically,
such a good podcast.
I was like, I'm going to adopt his mantras, right? I'm going to get the guy. And it was like the self-worth, the no games, the no nonsense, setting your boundaries. And when I met Liam, I was like, I'm basically looking for my husband. If you don't want to get married, don't waste my time. I'm also wanting to start a family. If you don't want kids, don't waste my time. And also, I want to be someone's number one. I don't want to be with somebody that's already got kids and be secondary to their children. I don't want to be with somebody that's best friends with their ex-partner and secondary to them. I don't want to be best friends with somebody that lives with their parents because you're secondary to the parents as well. I want to be somebody's number one. I'm nobody's number one. All my friends have kids. Their kids are their number one. I want to be the first person that somebody saves in a burning fire. I've got so many friends. I'm so loved, but I know I'm not first in line for a lot of things. And I need that. And he just went, I feel exactly the same. I've never, ever felt number one to anybody. And I went, well, you do. I went, if you go out with me, you will. And after that day, I literally said to my friend, I'm going to marry this guy. I knew instantly. First date.
Love that.
First date, I said to my friend, I'm going to marry him. Second date, I said to him, we're going to get married. Third date, I was at a wedding and FaceTimed him. I said, this is a really nice wedding venue. We should get married here. And he was like, yeah, we should. Didn't even, push back on it. But 5 years later, we did get married. We didn't rush into it. But part of that journey was me saying I really wanted a family. And he just went, not a problem. We will adopt.
So, I mean, this is the thing.
Did you adopt?
Well, before we go on to that, but she'll tell you about what's kind of next. But this is the thing that I find, so remarkable about Cinta. She lost a biological father, when she was so young. She lost her mother when she was only 30 years old. She lost her sister, when she was 31, 32. And then she gets told that she can't have children because she has menopause at 32 years old. Yet she's still one of the most vibrant, positive, people that has created an incredible career for herself. And, I think it's quite remarkable. This is not the average life of the kind of average person you meet. So I think,
sweet.
No, it's true. It's really, really true. And
I think I worry about the kind of the people pleasing side of that.
Do you know what's funny?
Because maybe she's projecting to you that perfect happiness.
It's not perfect because she said,
but happiness. Like this thing you're saying, having gone through all that, she's this very positive person. Maybe that's what you're seeing, but maybe behind the curtain, you know what I mean? People
do you think Payman's right? Do you
people
think
pleasers do that sometimes?
I have to be honest, there are times behind closed doors, and Liam would be in agreement, my husband, where I have my lulls. And I think everyone has that. You have to have those lulls to have those highs. I think it's impossible to be on a constant high.
It's true.
It's impossible to be on a constant high. I've had my lows, and going back to that, at the same time as my sister passing, my best friend also passed. a month later, the same cancer as my sister. So that was hard as well, because she was like my sister, my best friend, you know. Your friends are your family, you pick for yourself. But when this particular situation happened of not knowing of the whole fertility thing and knowing that I couldn't have children, and I then had a massive split in friendships. The behaviour of some of my friends
Oh, really?
at that time, and the justification of other friends trying to justify other friends' behaviour was just like, you fucking what?
Yeah, but
I couldn't believe people's behaviour.
But I think that's the thing, like when you're at your lowest, and over the last couple of years, I've had some really awful low points, really shows you who's there and
Yeah.
who's not. It's kind of ugly. It's really
I think,
ugly.
look, there's another element to it. Yeah, when you're down,
No one wants to hang around you.
no. When you're down, you amplify what's going. So
Yeah.
if a friend who might say something a little bit hurtful, because you're down, you see that as massively hurtful. And the opposite, the friend who does something a little bit nice, you think, oh, they're the most wonderful. It happens. I've seen it before.
But I got told I couldn't have children, and
How did you feel?
Yeah, how did you feel?
I felt useless.
Really?
Yeah. I felt like I've achieved all of these things, and then the one thing I really want, I can't do. But what I will say is that very soon, and there's always been an element of me that felt this way, but very soon I was like, there is a child, and I still very much believe it, there is a child on this earth that I'm made for. They're not made for me, I'm made for them. They need me.
But not having children at all isn't an option to you at all.
Yeah, so tell Payman about
So
this.
basically, the next option was, because obviously I can't have children, but Liam can. So I then felt this, maybe it's going back to people pleasing. I had this overwhelming urge of, you know, Liam's amazing. He said we can adopt, and I really do want to adopt. And there is a child out there that I'm made for. But Liam can have children, and he could leave me and he could go and have children with somebody else. So how do we find a way of making this work? So I went to a fertility clinic and spoke about ovum donation, egg donation. I'll be honest with you, the hospital that I went to here was, the doctor I spoke to was appalling, disgusting, rude, was like, yeah, it's going to cost, it's really expensive, and there's a 3-year waiting list, and you need to make sure you can afford it. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to spend my money with you then. And a good friend of mine, my friend Kirsty, had messaged me and said to me, I don't know whether you want to hear this, but there is a fertility clinic in Greece.
This is literally the most famous clinic. There's so many people that have gone to this.
There's a clinic in Greece called New Life. They are amazing. The woman there that runs it is amazing. She treats you like family. She is a wonderful human. I know her personally. Do you want me to introduce you to her? She did. I had a Zoom with her. And she basically said, Cinta, we can get you an egg donor. And what they literally do, in Greece, they have a rule where you don't meet your egg donor. You never know who it's come from, and they never know where their eggs have gone. But they basically take your height, your weight, your hair colour, your eye colour, your bra size, not joke, like
Match it.
your bra size, your interests, your hobbies, whether you've got rhythm or not, whether you play an instrument, whether you're a smoker, whether you're not a smoker, what TV shows you like, what humour you have, your everything, like down to like minuscule, like your relate. It's like a 15-page document, and they do that, and you do your blood test. We went to Greece, and basically 12 weeks later, I got a call to say, we found you the perfect match. She's 22. She's willing to donate her eggs to you. Obviously, you give a donation. So we did that, and she produced 17 eggs, 15 of which were mature, 15 were fertilised with Liam's sperm.
Embryos then.
And we created, and 12 were perfect. So we have 12 perfect embryos on ice in Greece, ready for when I want to put them in. Then I went through the journey of doing a fertility treatment plan to see if my body would accept those eggs. So I went on like a series of drugs. It thickens your uterus to cushion it. So when the eggs go in, it will cushion. And it was basically my way of being like, okay, there's somebody else's eggs, but I can grow this baby. The baby will have my blood group. It would be my child. It will still be Liam's, you know. It was a way of us having a family, and they're there, and it's funny.
Did you ever start it then? Did they ever implant an embryo?
So we did all the fertility drugs. It works. My body's on that. It works. I know it'll work, and it has a really high success rate. And funny enough, people say to me, "Why didn't you freeze your eggs?" I was like, "Well, I was only 30. Why was I going to freeze my eggs?" One and two, people freeze their eggs, but when they defrost, a lot of them die. So this is the safer way round of doing it anyway, even though they're not my eggs. But as time's gone on, Liam and I are like, there is still a child out there that needs us. Liam's a music producer. I have an amazing career, amazing friends. There is some child out there whose life can be changed.
I think adoption is also something that people don't do enough, to be honest. And I think particularly in their own countries. My husband is super pro adoption, actually. He's really pro it.
Oh, me too.
And he's very like, there's so many children out there that need you. And it's really funny. Like, I think probably because I'm of an age now where I'm really like thinking about the kind of like having a family thing. I have a friend, she's a psychotherapist, and she's never wanted children. Like, since I was 12, she did not want children. And a lot of people are like, she'll change her mind. She'll change her mind. She's 38 now, so hasn't changed her mind. She's got 2 dogs. She's very happy. She found a partner. The partner doesn't want kids either. And we had this conversation over dinner, and he said people are obsessed with their own DNA. And
Jesus.
He said that. This guy, her partner, he goes, people are obsessed with their own DNA. Like, they have an obsession with producing children because it's like their DNA. Like, they have this fear of their DNA, like, leaving the planet. My husband was really offended by that because he was like, no, like, there's so much more joy in like having children. It's like more than that, etc. My friend who's a psychotherapist, she said, look, at the end of the day, I'm a psychotherapist. It's not, I wouldn't want to say it's easy to have children, but like, people are not reinventing the wheel by having children. And a lot of people have children and they don't know how to actually treat those children. And there's so much neglect with children, and there's so much abuse, and there's so much this and that. So people have children really irresponsibly, is what she said, without thinking through the huge impact. You always say to me, you're like, having kids is like huge, you know, it changes your entire life. You said that to me several times. Yeah. And, you know, she also said, like, adoption, you know, there's so many children that have been left, like, neglected or as orphans or whatever it is. And they need to be looked after. And they're also bypassed.
Do you understand someone who says, I don't want to adopt?
Don't want to adopt? Yeah, I think I do.
Like, I know couples where they can't have kids. And one of them says, I don't want to adopt.
I understand that. I understand that.
You do?
Yeah, I do. Of course I do. Do you?
Yeah, because only from the difficulty perspective, right? I find having kids so hard
that you think about if it's not your own.
Someone else's kid. My own kid I find so hard.
Okay, but hold on. That can I pause you there? You're saying you find your own kids being difficult. Somebody else's kid, that wouldn't be somebody else. It's your child.
Yeah, I know.
If you adopt, that is your child, and that's where the mindset would have to change.
But it's not your child.
It is your child.
I think that's where men and women differ, though, because even so, sorry,
it is your child, and that's the child you're looking after. But biologically, it's not your child.
Biologically, it's not your child. But if you choose to adopt, you have to. I think the people
you're choosing that child.
You're choosing that
child
is yours.
I'm not 100% saying I wouldn't. Yeah, I just wouldn't have any more kids.
Yeah.
But if I had no kids, I certainly prefer. There's somewhere where I think is where you get gay couples who bring a new child in the world. And I think there's all these children, adopt one of them. Yeah, and they bring a new child in the world without a mother. And
because it's their sperm. But that's the thing, this is what I'm trying to say to you. Like, there is the whole like DNA argument, right? Like, not from my perspective, but I think what he was saying is like, he's making a good point, right? Like, why don't the gay couples adopt? Why are they obsessed with their own sperm being used? Do you see what I mean? Not obsessed, but as in like, but what is that for?
I think maybe it's a way of genetically proving that they can still be in a gay relationship and still have a family, because I think there's that big misconception or things, it's a very dated way of thinking. Back in the day, people thought, oh, if you're gay, you can't have a family. So I think
But they
nowadays,
can by adopting.
but now they can. But biologically, I'm speaking, because that's the way around. But for me, as I said before, going back to what you were saying about your friend not wanting children, when I found out I couldn't have children, my friendship circle was completely split. And
I find it weird though.
I had
Why?
a friend.
Why is that?
Well,
What
I had
did
a
some
friend.
people- what did some
I
people
had
do?
a friend who really, really, really was adamant she did not want children.
Yeah.
Completely adamant she didn't want children. When I told her, she was like, "Oh my God, there's me not wanting children, and there's you." And I was like, "Listen, I don't take offence for you not wanting kids. Everyone's in
Journey,
it's everyone's journey is their own, and I don't take offence." And then she got pregnant and has had a baby and just avoided me like the plague, and our friendship is dead. Gone like dead in the water. Like she had.
And then she felt awkward around.
I don't know. I had lots of different forms of justification of like, oh, maybe she felt awkward around you, maybe this, maybe that. And actually, I have another friend who wanted kids, but who wanted kids and knew what I was going through, and then fell pregnant. And actually, I was the first person she told. And I was so thrilled for her. And I cannot tell you how much joy I have from my friend's children.
Yeah.
Even if I don't see her very often, just seeing her kids on, little Instagram posts and the little videos that she sends me weekly, they bring me such joy. I love kids. I find them hilarious. I find them like...
This is what I mean about Cinta. I don't think this is the people-pleasing side, because I'm like, you can see she has no resentment. There's someone that could have incredible resentment. But that's why I want to, like, from the mental health point of view, like, what have you done to put bitterness and anger, like, away from, like, the world, universe, God? Like, you're not angry or bitter or blaming. You're not, you don't have that victim mentality. Because things have happened.
There's Liam would probably beg to differ. So he'd probably beg to differ behind closed doors. There are days where I think to myself, I think we all choose what we let affect us. And I think there's other things that affect me deeper than that. I find unauthentic people.
But that's because of the industry work in which we'll come on more onto.
Unauthentic people, unauthentic personas.
But that's because of the industry
Right?
working.
That
And always
really, really affects me. If I see someone on Instagram being a certain way and I know they're not like that, I'm out. It pisses me off. If I see somebody being successful because of that, it pisses me off.
Why?
Because I'm like, you're not
a douchebag. I say this to Payman all
you're
the time.
basically, it pisses me off because
pisses
I
me
think
off
to myself,
too.
people are buying into something.
I'll go into that.
People are buying into something that isn't real.
So there's somebody.
And if they saw that person's true character, they wouldn't buy into that person. And there is a person that does have that true character that deserves.
Yeah, no, obviously.
platform.
But when I say why, I don't mean that. I mean, like, for instance, my business partner, his bugbear is lying.
Oh my God, I can't bear it.
Okay, but like, if someone lies to him,
It's done.
He's really, really like hurt by it. Like, it's massive. Like, I don't like being lied to, yeah, but it doesn't hit me as hard as it hits him. Yeah. So
what hits you hard?
Yeah, what hits you hard?
Someone else using another whitening system.
I think it was
Jokes,
kids.
that's still.
I'm joking.
No, I don't know, but my point, my why question is, why does inauthenticity hit you so hard
I think
compared to the next man?
I feel like because I try to always be the truest version of myself.
Why?
Because I don't think there's any other way to be.
Why?
If he's like this, by the way, he tries to trigger you.
Why? No, but why? But why? I feel like I've been put on this planet to be the way I am. I'm born the way I am, and it's
Okay, listen, can I just...
the way
can I,
you should be,
okay,
I
listen,
suppose.
can I interject? So Cinta works with a huge number of celebrities. She has huge experience working in the industry, famous people, musicians, etc. So from both our point of views, well, first of all, to a degree, we're the sort of people that put ourselves out there. We've got a platform, etc., etc. But I think that's really difficult is that when you see why people are worshipped, and I think the older I've got, I've recognised that we worship celebrities. I'm saying we as in like collective as the world. Why? Okay. And then you meet some people and you're like, you're not who you say you are. And I think it's, there's so many people that look up to you and so many people that, buy into what you're saying, but you're not even who you say you are. It's a bit like when people say, don't meet your heroes, I
get it.
And it's a really difficult thing, because if you're such an honest person and you convey yourself in your truest form, it's annoying and it's upsetting. And also, from a personal point of view, if you work really hard and you see somebody that is inauthentic doing better than you, it's not necessarily jealousy, I would say, but it's like you do feel a bit hard done by. It's frustration, because you're like, I work so hard, that person is so dishonest, but people buy into them more, and it's frustrating.
And do you know what else happens?
I get it.
An inauthentic person likes to look at people like ourselves that are true, honest. Listen, people think I'm an extrovert. I can be an extrovert in some instances. Other instances, I'm a real introvert. I remember going on tour once, and he's actually my business partner now, a guy called Ashton. But years ago, Ashton and I were going on this big tour with quite a famous music artist. And that music artist had said to Ashton, Cinta's coming on tour with us. And he went, he was like, Cinta, she's coming on tour with us. And she was like, yeah. He was like, oh my God, we're not going to sleep. We're not going to sleep. She's going to talk nonstop. She's going to do our fucking heads in. Oh my God, I don't know if I can try.
I've got a question.
I don't know. Let me just tell you this.
Yeah.
And then we got on tour, and at work I'm like that. And then as soon as the day was over, we were on the tour bus. I was like, oh, just to let you know, I've made you a chicken sandwich. I've made you this. I'm just going to go to bed now at night. And Ashton was like, where's Cinta? Are you going to bed? And he was like, on tour, you were like, oh, Mother Hubbard. He goes, without you on that tour, it would have been so different, because you were so amazing, and I completely fell in love with you on that tour. And from that day, you're one of my best friends, and now he's my business partner. Because actually, I think there's a time and a place for being an extrovert, right? But inauthentic people like to look at people like us and go, yeah, but they're trying to be famous. They're trying to be like this.
That in the dental industry all the time.
They're trying to be famous. They can't, they just want their name up in lights. We can't help that we're good at something and are successful, and people want to be around us, and we're magnetic. But the inauthentic people don't like it. So there must be something wrong with us, because there's something wrong with them. They know there's something wrong with them, so they project that onto us. That's what pisses me off.
I've got a question. It's kind of for both of you. In your job and in your job, right? You're coming across the elite to some extent of our society. Yeah. And you're kind of really, it's almost like you've got like this top table of society, and you can see what's going on that top table, but you're not on it yourself. Does that frustrate you? What emotions go through you?
I'm going to be really honest.
Yeah.
I look at the elite.
Yeah.
I'm happy for them, and I'm like,
you don't want it.
You stay there. And it's not jealousy. It's not that I don't want to do it. I'm like, if I happen to get to that point and I'm there, so be it. And if I'm not, do you know what? I'm going to go home and make myself a cup of tea and watch Married at First Sight.
No, but do you sometimes feel like you're living a double life? Like, I don't know.
No, not really. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm successful, because when I take on youngsters as assistants, one thing I say to them is, like, especially at Fashion Week, I'm like, there's loads of Fashion Week parties. Don't be the last person to leave. If you want to go and dip your toe in.
That's what she said to me when I took her to a fashion party. London Fashion Week, I took her to the most exclusive party. There were all these A-listers. Cinta's like, we're here for a good time, not a long time, yeah? Don't be the last one to leave.
But it's like, I just feel like if you want to be part of that world, let me tell you, the A-listers don't want to be at a big party for very long. They're in and out.
Yeah.
You go and you set your worth by going, dipping your toe in and leaving, because actually your worth is your career and your reputation. My reputation isn't built on being a party girl. So therefore, I'm happy to go. And I always say to my youngsters, don't be, what's the word? Gaslit, blinds, whatever the word is. Don't get rose-tinted glasses by thinking, oh, I work in fashion. Oh, it's the Brits. I'm going to the after party and I'm going to go and then go and do loads of drugs and then wake up the next day, because you'll just go, enjoy it a bit. And I promise you, the next day, you won't have FOMO or you won't have that beer fear or whatever. What you'll be is like, I had such a short, snappy point of that, like time at that event that holds such value, and you'll cherish it. One of my best friends was an actress back in the day, and I used to go to events with her all the time. We used to go in, take the picture, and we were out the back door. And within half an hour, we were at home, face mask on and a cup of tea. And I think that has been the key to my success, is never overstaying my welcome or being at a place where I don't really need to be.
I'm not only talking about events, though. I'm talking about just lives.
Listen,
What do you mean by lives?
Like, I don't know, man. You might end up at some on some holiday with some people whose lives are just totally different to yours, because they are these elite types. Yeah, and you feel like I feel like it's on the edge of it. Maybe I can see what people are doing, but I'm not there. Or maybe I just watched Eyes Wide Shut. Maybe that's why.
I think there's. I also think there's two different types of people as well. You know, when you get the elite that genuinely do have, like, I've got some clients that have got ridiculous amounts of wealth, probably the same as you, incredibly wealthy, incredibly successful, but with that comes with them being incredibly down to earth.
Yeah, some are.
I don't find it's the elite that are like that. I feel it's the people that are here that think they've got
pretending
it all.
to be the elite.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, you get a lot of that in dentistry. I think there is so much ego in dentistry. And I honestly have never seen as much ego in dentistry as I have in any other profession. I genuinely mean that. And like, I know people in finance, I know people, but it's quite remarkable. Like, some dentists think, and I know that perhaps the older generation dentists would say the same about me, like, they genuinely believe that they are like these crazy celebrities. And you know what? I'm like, back yourself. You know, you can.
That is you, right? That is you.
No. Look at him. Look at him. Listen, I don't think so at all. Payman, be fair to me, though. Be fair to me, because you have even said to me that you get shocked at the lack of my self-esteem and my self-worth. So how can I back myself if I don't even believe that I'm good enough? Like, that's an oxymoron in itself. So for me, actually, I've spent my whole life feeling like I am not good enough, feeling that I have not made it. And as I get older, I feel old and irrelevant because of the narrative that has been created around women and their worth as they get older. So actually, I feel more and more worthless in society. I sometimes compare myself to young girls online that are living these incredible lives on private islands and private jets. And I've got this amazing friend called David. And I call up David, or I go and see him. He works next to me. That's the one that we're doing the block party with. And he goes, I go to him, I'm like, look at my life. I'm like taking the bus now. I'm living this ratchet little life. And like, look at this girl. And he's like, he knows the ins and outs of some of these girls, and not as all that it seems. You know, there is a dystopian darkness to all of this. These girls that are on the private jets, that are wearing all the Hermes bags, that appear to be making lots of money online, there is a darkness. You know, there's also this entire world of money where they're actually being paid for services, you know, that they don't talk about. And I didn't know about all of this. There is even a website called Seeking Arrangements. So Seeking Arrangements is where these beautiful women are being paired up with men, and there's different levels. Now, I'm not joking. There's different.
I've got lots of clients that've been on Seeking Arrangements.
There's lots of levels. So you can get paid for your company. You can get paid to be at a party with them. You can get paid for other things, and the tiers go on and the monies go on. And the problem is that once somebody's had a little taste of that kind of life, and you're talking about elite life, I'm talking about private jets and private islands, right? The problem is that you get used to that. And then on Instagram, you might see like, hey, I'm on a private jet, but then there's darkness associated with that. You know, how does your soul feel? How does your mind feel? And it's this whole kind of thing.
I mean, even the guy who owns the island, his brother might be suicidal and heroin addict, or he might be this down-to-earth guy. You know what I mean?
But when I look at stuff like that, if I'm honest, I see that, and I'm just like, the reality is those kind of situations for those kind of people don't last forever. They have to make the best out of a limited time. They're relying on looks, certain, you know, the way their body looks, they're getting surgery or whatever. And listen, good luck to them if they're happy. But what I know, that doesn't last forever. For me, there maybe would have been a time years ago when I was like, oh, you know, I want to look better. I want to, you know, I want to look, I don't know, I want to look like a Victoria. I want to look like Kim Kardashian. I don't know. You look at girls, you know, they're really attractive and you want to better yourself. But actually, I think value and wealth really comes from an inside. It really is. It's such a big inside job. Mm-hmm. As I said, I've got friends that are incredibly wealthy, and I go to their houses and they've got these like beautiful grounds and whatever, and I go there and I think to myself, my eyes and your eyes are the same. You might own this, but I'm seeing it the same as you, and I'm benefiting from it. I'm enjoying it. I get the same enjoyment from it. I get the same enjoyment from, I can go to a restaurant and I can get the same enjoyment from a taste. I can get the same enjoyment from this lovely cup of herbal tea. For me, it's the enjoyment that we have, that things from that money can't buy.
Yeah, the cliche, the best things in life are actually free.
Yeah, they are. And I think
but it's finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, like as cliche as that sounds, you know, because as you said, even going through that horrific stuff that you went through, being on the top of the mountain, like genuinely sometimes when you take a moment when you're not on your phone and you look up at something like a beautiful autumn day, or you know, your surroundings, you can find beauty and gratitude
100%.
in the ordinary things. Like there's some days that even when I come to this podcast and I'm like, oh, I have like mad love for Payman and like what we do you know what I mean? It's like we're doing like a normal thing, if that makes sense. There's nothing extraordinary, but I think you can find it in those little things.
And you know what's funny as well, this will probably really make you laugh, but you know, like you're saying, you find beauty in ordinary things. I think the day that I was in Thailand and I looked up and I was like, oh my God, and I was incredibly lucky, I think that's when my outlook really changed on things. And I every day I'm really grateful for a lot of things. I'm like grateful I've woken up, grateful I'm breathing, grateful I open my curtain and there's trees outside my curtain.
Do you make a practice of being grateful?
I don't make a practice. I just feel that I do.
Is it part of your morning routine to be grateful?
I've started doing it more and more. Like a few things have happened to me in the last couple of years, and I've had no choice but to force myself into situations of gratitude.
It's great. I was going to say. Sorry,
I was going to say something that's going to make you laugh, but it's funny because, as I said, I've got friends that live in like these incredible houses and do really well for themselves and yada yada. And I go around there and I'm like, great. And then, you know, I live in an area that's really beautiful. I live in a really beautiful part of the world. I don't have the biggest home. I have a lovely home. It's not the biggest home. And people come to where I live and they're like, oh my God, you live inside. Wow, what a beautiful part of the world to live in. It's like a small, humble home, but it's beautiful. And then there are some people that can go to a mate's house that have the big house and be like jealous. Or you can kind of be like, you could use it to your advantage. I always say to Liam, and Liam's like not having it, I'm like, when, you know, our next thing, what I'd really like to do is buy our forever home and then have like a little pad in London in a certain area. And Liam's like, yeah, maybe. And I'm like, well, if it was my choice, I would live in that certain area now. He's like, no, you live in that certain area. You live on the exact road and I've dropped you there. And I don't go, Rhona lives there. And I'm not jealous. I'm like, hallelujah, I've got a mate that lives on that road that I can benefit from now. I can go down that road.
Why do you think some people are like that and other people are jealous?
It's that it comes from a place of lack. It comes from a place of...
But did you do that work, Cinta, like with all the losses in your life? Or do you think that you were like, or do you think your mum brought you up like that? Or do you think, because obviously going through what you've been through, there was going to be like moments of like such deep sadness. Or did you have therapy? Like, how did you get there?
Do you know what's funny? And this is only something I realised as an adult. As a kid, especially as a 5-year-old kid, we were really poor, super poor. We lived, not that people that live in a council house are poor, but we lived in a council house on a really rough council estate. My mum didn't have much money. She was on minimum wage, working at the hospital, 5 kids, really poor. But do you know what my mum did? It wasn't until I was an adult that I realised we were poor. My mum made us feel like the richest kids going, because my mum sat us at the table, fed us a 3-course meal every night. There was pasta, there was chicken, there was salad. She made sure we were clean. We were bathed every day. We were in clean bed sheets. We were fed and watered. I felt like I was the richest kid at school. We used to go to school with a packed lunch of lasagna and sandwiches and pasta, all sorts of stuff. Whereas kids just had like a packet of crisps, a wafer, and like a dead cheese and pickle sandwich. Whereas my mum had this ability to make us feel like we lived in abundance. And I feel like that's what I've carried with me.
Abundance.
And I think that people that feel that way have come from a place of lack. It's comparison. Parents that have said, oh, so-and-so's bought a car.
Yeah.
I bet they've got that car, and oh, we'll get a better car. We'll do this. It's comparison. And I actually don't care about that. If you get something that's great, I'm thrilled for you. If you live in the area that I want to live in, I'm coming to meet you for a coffee every Sunday, and I'm going to make it work to my favour.
Yeah.
Comparison really is the
It's comparison.
It really
it's
is.
just awful.
Yeah.
So, Cinta, I could sit and talk to you for ages. Thank you so much for sharing your truths and your journey for us, to us. I think you're amazing. And
You're amazing. I think you're amazing.
Thank you for, sharing everything. For those of you that want to know, her Instagram handle is Cinta London. She's an incredible makeup artist doing music as well. I have been on the iconic website from Cinta doing my makeup. So she is amazing and incredible. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Cheers.